Okay, a very big welcome to Pennine Ham this evening. Delighted to see club members and one or two new faces in the room here tonight. Very pleased to welcome them to the meeting. In particular, of course, our speaker tonight, Carl W8WZ and Brantley K4CBW. Good to see you both. Also to all our club members and friends who have joined us here this evening. And a welcome, of course, to Bob G3VXJ down there on the south coast as well. So tonight's meeting is one of several we've got on antennas, and particularly antennas that we can use portable. And as I think I said to Carl in one of my early emails, building antennas and playing with them is one of the great joys of life for radio amateurs nowadays, partly because radios nowadays are so complex. Yes, we can still build a one valve transmitter or even a 2 or 3 semiconductor transmitter, but we can't do with it what we can do with a modern radio. Even the cheaper end of them are just amazing in comparison to what we had to deal with many, many years ago. But what we can do is play with antennas and bits of wire and sometimes a bit more than that. And in particular, play portable. And we've got a group of people in this room here, many of whom very much enjoy portable operating and having fun with portable radios. So we've been having a series of talks. You're in the middle of these ones just before Christmas, Carl. Next week, we've got Steve AA4BW, who's going to give us a talk about telescopic poles. And when I mentioned that to my wife a couple of weeks ago, she said, "How are you having a whole meeting, Nick, about telescopic poles?" And I said to her, "Look, you don't understand. These are very important." She said, "Is that why you've got about 10 of them in the cupboard there?" So I said, "Obviously." So that'll be interesting as well. And in the new year, we're starting off the new year. Our first speaker is going to be Paul, and I've forgotten his call sign for a second, in the UK here, doesn't live very far away from me, who is very much into parks on the air and operating portable with POTA, and also who's responsible as well, one of the people responsible for mapping and bringing new parks into POTA status in England. So that'll be a good start, I think, to the new year. So with that, Carl, what prompted me was another US amateur who's in the room here tonight, a member of our club, Bob N4XAT, up over there on the bit higher up from you, Carl. You're down in New Orleans. He dropped me an email a while ago with a copy of the CW Ops, latest magazine, which I hadn't seen. And although I actually am a CW Ops member, but I hadn't read the magazine, and I saw your article, and I immediately thought this would make a fantastic talk. And that coupled with your QRZ page, and I'm probably going to steal one of your jokes you're going to come out with when you talk tonight, Carl, but I couldn't resist it. When we go operating portable here in the hills, you know, the worst we can face here in the north of England is rain and snow and horrible wind. That's probably the worst conditions we're going to face. I did have some wild horses up on the hill in the location I was hoping to operate on earlier in the year. So I gave them a miss because they can get a little bit frisky. But I see you have to deal with alligators when you're going out on your portable operations. So we'd be very interested to hear about the scrapes you have out there. So Carl, without any more ado, I'm going to hand the microphone to you and let you take it away.
Okay, thank you, Nick, very much. Well, I appreciate the invitation to speak to your club. And since you got in contact, I looked up your club on the internet, and I'm just so impressed with what y'all are doing. I think it's great to gather, and I feel a sense of camaraderie with you because your radio club is fairly new. And the little club that we have here is also fairly new. So I just love to see ham radio growing and thriving and connecting, and clubs forming for people to support one another. And I'm happy to be part of that. I am much more suited to radios with valves than I am with computers with screens. So forgive me if I don't do this right, but I'm going to try to share my screen now with a PowerPoint presentation. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Can you see that okay?
That's excellent. Very good.
Okay, perfect. So this antenna is very interesting. You can see a picture of it in the screen there. And what's appealing about it is that it costs less than $300 US total. Down in less than 10 minutes by one person. Ropes. It can handle legal limit power, which here in the United States is 1.5 kilowatts, and it offers 5 dB of gain. So that's pretty cool for little antenna system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it here. Kind of the agenda for this presentation will be the portable vertical antenna that it's based around. Obviously, a cubical quad is based around a loop as the driven element. A Yagi is based around a dipole as a driven element. This is based around a quarter wave vertical as the driven element. So we'll talk about that antenna. And then the idea for the beam, where it came from, kind of the component procurement. So if you'd like to make one, where you can get the parts, the assembly of it, and then the use of it. And the picture here on this slide is of those of us who are in this little radio club that kind of birthed the idea of this antenna. Myself there on the left, John K4EB, who is at work right now, so couldn't join us, and Brantley K4CBW, who is on the call. And these pictures were all taken at this year's Dayton Hamvention, where the idea for this antenna came to be. And you can see over Brantley's shoulder, the vertical antenna, the telescopic vertical antenna there in the middle of the field. And Brantley is actively making some CW contacts there at a POTA, Parks on the Air event. And all of these pictures were taken there. So the next slide here, this is a map of the United States. And this is important because the geography of the United States plays a lot into this antenna as well. I grew up here in Michigan, in the Midwest, and then I've lived in lots of different places. And most recently, I lived in North Carolina. And I've always enjoyed ham radio. I've been a ham since I was 15 years old. So the vast majority of my life, I've been a ham. And what I've learned about antennas is from talking to other hams, from experimenting, from seeing what other people do, and from reading the antenna books and the magazine articles and listening to presentations like this one at radio clubs. And to be honest, I never used a vertical antenna very regularly at all. And the reason for that was I'd always been in places where there were tall trees. These pictures are all taken in North Carolina, where I lived most recently. And you can see North Carolina is covered in these beautiful God-made antenna hangers. They stand, 100 foot tall. They have narrow bottoms and wide branches at the top, so you can get a lineup and you can get a wire antenna 100 feet into the air pretty easily throughout most places in North Carolina. And when you can get a wire that high in the air, it's hard to argue with anything else. It works very well. And so that's what I always did. But then I moved from North Carolina here down to the bottom of the United States on the Gulf of Mexico in New Orleans, Louisiana. And here things are a little different. Nick alluded to alligators. We also have every venomous snake in the North American continent in great abundance in this area. And these are all pictures that I took in my local POTA parks. And as you can see, do not feed the alligator signs. And I think they mean do not feed them with anything, but I especially do not want to be the meal for the alligator. And I do not want to run across snakes. So the other problem that we have is not only do we have a lot of snakes and alligators and ants and bugs and things that bite in the parks, we lack tall trees. If we have a tree that's 10 to 15 feet tall, that's considered a very tall tree in this area. The trees that grow here tend to be very short trees, which are very pretty, but they do not make good antenna hangers. And I really don't want to be out and about in the areas trying to put the wire up anyway. And you were talking about temperatures earlier. It's 20 degrees Celsius today, and that's as cold as it gets in New Orleans usually. Our temperatures are well over 100 Fahrenheit throughout 9 to 10 months of the year with high humidity. So being outdoors is not always the most pleasant. So that led me to think that I needed different antennas down here than I needed when I was further north. So my thoughts turned to the vertical antenna. I first came across this telescopic vertical antenna from the company MFJ. They were going out of business and they had a sale, and I saw one. And I thought, now that's really interesting. Now, I had never used a vertical before because as a kid growing up, what I had heard about verticals was not good. I had always heard verticals radiate equally poorly in all directions, that most unwanted noise is vertically polarized, and that vertical antennas will not work without 360 quarter wavelength ground radials buried around them. And so, unless you had to absolutely use one because you were putting it on your car or something like that, just anything was better than a vertical. But I also remembered something else that I'd heard as a kid. I was in our radio store in Detroit, Michigan Radio, and the owner had gone on vacation down to Florida, and he was talking on HF to his son, who was running the shop. And I was talking with the son who was running the shop when I was in there one day. And we were talking about vertical antennas and how they don't work. And he said, yeah, except in Florida. He said, when my parents go down to Florida for vacation, they just have a vertical antenna and they have a really loud signal. And it's because of the soil conductivity down there, because of all the saltwater marsh and swamp. The verticals work well down there, but that's it. And that nugget kind of stuck in my head. And so when I came down here to South Louisiana, I looked at soil conductivity. And this map was put together by the FCC in 1975, and they rated what they estimated to be ground conductivity in the United States. And the higher the number, the better the conductivity. And I live right here where it's 30, which is the highest number that they give to soil conductivity. So I thought, well, maybe this would be a good place for a vertical. And so I went shopping on the internet, and I found eBay sellers from China selling some very interesting parts at affordable prices. And I put an order together and acquired an antenna system. So what you see now on the far left is the ground spike. That's about 1 foot long, about 12 inches long. And it is an SO239 female UHF connector to a female M10 connector. And then in the far right of the screen is the telescopic whip. And that is 5.6 meters tall when fully extended. And it extends down to less than a meter, about 2 feet when it's fully compacted. In the middle is a coil. And that coil, when plugged in between the ground mount and the whip, will allow the antenna to be used on 40 meters. Obviously with some inefficiencies by base loading a vertical with inductance, but still it gets the signal on 40 meters. And then in the middle right, you'll see a circular packet of wire. That's the ground radial system. And there are not 360 ground radials, there are 4. And what's unique about this system is that one of the 4 radials is cut to be 40 meters, resonant on 40 meters. One is cut to be 20 meters. One is cut for 15 meters, and one is cut for 10 meters. And what that allows is the antenna to find resonance on all of those bands, because you'll have, when you're operating with the 40 meter coil, you'll have a 40 meter counterpoise wire, ground radial. When you're operating on 20, you'll have one that's cut for that, and so on. And I lay them out in an X format as best as I practically can. Sometimes location doesn't allow an even X, but I, do what I can. And then I went for this very thin RG316 coaxial cable with BNC connectors on it, because it's very lightweight and portable, and I don't need that much of it. So I don't mind that it's higher loss. I'm willing to sacrifice the higher loss of that cable for the convenience of its size. And then I ordered from a great UK company, Soda Beams, this wire winder, and that's what stores the radial and the feed line. And that's my vertical antenna system. So I thought I'd give it a shot. And there's a picture of the kit, actually in my possession, picture taken on my kitchen countertop. So as you can see, that's a pretty easy to transport portable antenna system for 40 through 10 meters. And here's some pictures of it in use. There it is at my local park, Bayou Sauvage, which is a POTA entity. And you can see my alligator friend is out there in the park. I'm very cautious when I go to put it up and take it down. And there have been a couple of times where I've driven by and decided maybe I should go get some lunch and come back later. Or maybe I should just keep operating until he goes a little further away before I take it down. But as you can see, I'm very close to a saltwater swamp. And in South Louisiana, we like to say we do not have terra firma, we have terra soggy. And that ground is very mushy, and you footprint into it as you walk, which is great for the soil conductivity. And so when using it in that application, I don't even use the ground radials, and it works reasonably well. I'd say very well. Sometimes even I'm in places where you cannot put the antenna in the ground, either because the park has a rule about not being able to put stakes in the grounds. Another one of my local parks is a battlefield, and because there are the remains of the fallen still in the battlefield, the park has a rule against doing anything into the ground, no ground stakes. And so in that case, I got a magnet mount, and I just put my whip on top of the car and sit inside the car, away from bugs and other critters, and in air-conditioned comfort. And also some parks require that level of operating. Some of our parks here that are POTA entities, you're not actually allowed to get out of your vehicle. So it allows me to operate in those. Since that picture was taken, I've bought a trailer hitch mount for my car. So now I can put the antenna here on the back of the trailer hitch, if that's a better option sometimes too. And sometimes I go more than QRP and set up and actually use a little contest like setup and transmit using N1MM by hitting the F1 key. And sometimes I do contests that way. And sometimes I use a 100-watt radio, but most of the time I prefer to do QRP, mostly only CW. And you can see here from these pictures, I've used this antenna all over the place. And I travel for work, and my job takes me around the United States, especially the southern and the central United States. And so I've had the opportunity to use this antenna even in places with poor soil conductivity. On the left, that's all sand, which is one of the worst soils for soil conductivity. And yet with my 4 little radials, it works. You can see the picture on the right was taken in Oklahoma, and that soil is almost all rock, very rocky, north of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And yet my antenna system with my 4 radials works. And it's easy to walk into a park, and in a few minutes, the antenna's up. I get on, I make my parks on the air contacts. I have a lot of fun. I'm usually running 5 watts, and the antenna really works. So it's convenient, it's not that expensive, and it works well. And here's proof of that, or evidence of that at least, in my POTA statistics. In the past 2 years, since I've really started doing POTA, maybe 5 years, so these are probably over 5 years, 314 activations at 163 different parks and more than 7,000 QSOs. And that was done mostly QRP CW and mostly with that antenna system. So I really love it. Love that antenna system. The other thing I love to do in ham radio is contesting. And the only thing more fun than contesting by yourself is contesting with your friends. And so we've started our little ham radio club here, the Pinecone Amateur Radio Club, and we like to go do portable multi-multi. So we will go to a park or anywhere we can find space, really. We'll rent a cabin, rent an Airbnb, and set up a multi-multi station. And Brantley and I do mostly CW, and John does phone, although he's learning code. And we usually set up 2 transmitters and try to do the best we can. And here's some photos of us doing that. The top left was field day. And that was several years ago before we switched to using Yaesu FTDX10s. The multi-multi radios are hard to find, and the FTDX10 is a very good solution for us. But in that case, it was before then we were using FT990 for voice and an Omni 6 10-Tech for CW. And then in the bottom picture, that's Brantley this winter at a cabin in Western North Carolina. And then in the right, we rented a cabin in Virginia for the Virginia QSO party. And it was during that time that we really started to have to work on a lot of antenna solutions and interstation interference issues. In the Virginia picture, you'll see a bandpass filter in there, and we still suffered with some interference station to station in there. Then we went to the Dayton Hamvention. If you've ever had an opportunity to go to Dayton, Ohio for Hamvention in May, you'll know it's a wonderful experience, a lot of hams, a lot of vendors, a lot of forums and education, and a lot of clubs have dinners and banquets and gatherings, and everybody's happy to be together doing ham radio. And while we were there this past May, we stumbled across Mecca. We walked over. Brantley was the one who discovered this and brought the other 2 of us over to the Buddy Hex booth and saw this great big portable, in quotes, beam antenna system, the Buddy Hex. And it's on a 30-foot tall mast, and it has 5 dB of gain. And, it's a hex beam antenna, and you can take it portable, and it comes in these big bags that you can transport it in the back of a pickup truck, and it has the guy ropes so that you can put it up. And we looked at it, and Brantley and John were very eager about this, and I was kind of the joy kill pragmatist, and I said, oh my gosh, but look how heavy that is. Look how much time it's going to take us to put it up, and where are we going to store it? And it's going to be heavy. Plus, look how much money it costs. And I, just being a negative Nancy, and Brantley says, yeah, but Carl, how fun would it be to have a beam when we go to do our portable contesting? And I said, well, that is true. So that got me to thinking, why not make a 3-element beam using the telescopic vertical antenna that I like so much? I thought about it. I said, well, it would be cheap. It would be lightweight, easy to store and transport. I thought about it, and with my limited knowledge of ham radio antennas, 30 plus years as a ham and reading a lot of books and articles and seeing it should work. So why haven't I heard of this before? So I started doing a little bit of looking around the internet, and I found a June 1971 QST article by Jerry Sevick, W2FMI, entitled The W2FMI 20-Meter Vertical Beam. And I read the article, and I thought, yes, this is exactly what I've been envisioning. And I had a few key takeaways from the article. Jerry had success with the 3-element vertical beam, and he measured 5.2 dB of gain over a vertical. Now, he also lived in an area of very poor soil conductivity, so his system required a fairly extensive field of ground radials, and he lacked the telescopic whips that I now have. And so his system had to be designed in a very clunky, heavy-duty way with pipe that was not easily moved or rotated. And I really felt bad for him as I read his article, because being 1971, he lacked modern test equipment. And so when he was trying to do his impedance matching, it was very laborious. He had to do a lot of math to kind of get in the ballpark and then test it with an SWR meter and then do a whole bunch of trial and error until he could match impedance, whereas I use a modern antenna analyzer, and I did in minutes what it took him hours to do. But I read that article and I thought, that's proof of the concept. I can do this with modern parts. This is from his article. You can see in the upper right-hand corner in that grainy picture, that's a picture of his beam in his yard. On the top left, that's his spacing, what he figured was the best spacing for it, which is very much close to just the standard math that we would do to make a Yagi out of dipoles, with the director, the driven element, and the reflector, and the spacing. On the lower left, you see the horizontal directivity pattern, and it's got a beam width of 84 degrees and 5 dB of gain. That's pretty good performance. So I sat down with pen and paper and sketched out what I would build in the backyard. You can see the skies on top and the grounds on the bottom. And I did this when I was in North Carolina this past summer on vacation, visiting my old North Carolina haunts. And so since that is right on the eastern seaboard and I wanted to talk into the United States for this contest, I just pointed it west. And so you can see on the far eastern side is my reflector, the driven element in the middle. And then on the west, where I wanted the signal to go, is my director. Here are the links to buy these parts on eBay or Amazon. I'd already had the parts because I really like these vertical antennas, and so I bought a few extra of them just in case one broke. I wouldn't be dead in the water. So I already had in my closet the parts, but these are the links to the items in case anybody is interested in procuring them. And there's a picture of the antenna system in the backyard of the Airbnb that I had rented in North Carolina for the contest I was there to participate in. And as you can see, it fits pretty easily in the back garden. It's not too ugly. It's not something that the neighbors would be too inclined to complain about, especially in that house where there's so many tall trees around the property line that the neighbors probably wouldn't see it anyway. And it was very easy to put up and take down. So then I got on the air, and when Jerry did his tests in the 70s, he had to just make a whole bunch of contacts and hope that the people were giving him accurate feedback on his signal reports. I had the benefit of using the reverse beacon network, RBN, and in the left picture, you'll see that's just me using the vertical. I had the horizontal, I had the reflector and director laying on the ground horizontally, so not in the picture at all. And I called CQ and I used the RBN to map my hits. And as you can see, it was 20 meters in around 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time when I did this test on 20 meters. And you can see I have a pretty round pattern. There's nothing in the Atlantic behind me, largely because there were no stations in the middle of the Atlantic on RBN to pick up. But it's a pretty round pattern if you make that allowance. So then I ran out and quickly verticalized the director and reflector and did the same thing about 5 minutes apart. And you'll see that I now point heavily west. I don't have the south contacts at all. I have much fewer north contacts. I still have a couple hits off the north side of the beam, off the right side of the beam, but much fewer than before. And my western contact, there is the direction that the antenna is pointing. So that was encouraging to see. And so then I did this little comparison here between the hex beam and the vertical beam. So the total cost of the hex beam antenna system for the antenna, transport bag, mast, guy wire is $1,628 US, and for the vertical beam, $235. So the vertical beam certainly wins on that one. On the gain, their published gain number is 5 dB, and that's what the author of this article measured. And so I think they're pretty comparable on gain. The power handling are both can handle legal limit US power. Here's where they start to get a little different, though. Can be quickly erected by one person. The hex beam, no, but the vertical beam, yes, quickly. And small to store, light and easy to carry. Can you put it in the trunk of your car, carry it? Can you check it in an airplane carry-on bag? Not the hex beam, but yes, the vertical beam. And here's another great advantage. Elevation needed for low angle of takeoff. you needed at least 30 feet off the ground for a 20-meter beam, horizontally polarized antenna. So you need a 30-foot mast for the hex beam, whereas the nature of vertical antennas having a lower angle of takeoff by their nature allows for the antenna system to be ground mounted and still have a low takeoff angle. So those are very strong arguments to me that the vertical beam is a good antenna. Here are some hints and ideas that we've had as we've been using it, and ideas that had kind of come through usage. First, and this was from John K4EB, make the radials different colors. And the reason is, one of them is cut for 40 meters, one's 20, one's 50, one's 10. When you're unspooling them, sometimes you're not in a place where you have equal distance in all directions. You might be able to stretch that 40-meter wire out in one direction, but in the other one, you don't have the direction, so you want to put the short wire in that direction, as you're trying to set this up in a park or something. And if the radials were different colors, you'd know right away which is the long one and which is the short one, so it would make laying it out when you're setting it up easier. Thought that was a good idea. Also, these antenna radials are connecting to the base of the antenna using a spade clip, a spade connector. And that wears out over time. And I'd say every couple of months, I need to take a pair of pliers and tighten them up again. Whereas if we'd used an alligator clip, we wouldn't have that problem. And so I suggest instead of using a spade connector, use an alligator clip to attach the radials to the ground part of the antenna. Next, use pre-measured lengths of string with alligator clips on the end to help determine spacing when deploying the antenna in the field. And you could use a different colored string for the length of the director, the driven element, the reflector, and for element spacing, and keep that string on a spool or wire winder type device. And then when you go out to set this up in the park, clip the string on the antenna tip and then just telescope raise that antenna up until you've reached the end of your string. And that would ensure that you've raised the antenna to the proper height without having to have a measuring tape with you and trying to measure it, in the field. Same thing with the antenna spacing. If you put a string that's cut to the right length between the different vertical antennas, your spacing can always be right, even if you rotate it. If you pick up the director and move it to a different direction and stick it in the ground, as long as that string is still taut between them, you've moved it without interrupting your spacing considerably. And so those are some kind of helpful get it up and down quick antennas. And fourth, directional antennas, we think of them because we can get our signal into the place we want it to go. We want to work stations west of us or north of us or east of us, etc. And they do certainly help with that. But when we're doing multi contesting, they can also just be used because they can help reduce interstation QRM. If I can put an antenna director pointing away from the antenna that the other station is using, it can greatly help reduce the interference that the 20-meter station receives from the 40-meter station and vice versa. And so sometimes, even if we don't want the directional pattern for the sake of the contest strategy, we can use it just to keep our stations from interfering with each other. And that has a lot of value. The other thing that helps antennas not interfere with each other in a multi setting is cross-polarizing them. And so if we were already using a horizontal antenna like a dipole, using this vertically polarized antenna would further reduce interstation QRM. Here are the resources. The original article can be found on the ARRL's webpage. If you're a member of the league, I would suspect that many members of this club, since you're all over in Europe and in the UK, might not be league members, but I do have it on PDF. So if you send me an email, I can email you a copy of the PDF of the original article. And then my article has been published in the QRP Quarterly magazine, in the CW Ops Solid Copy, and in the club newsletters of the Raleigh Amateur Radio Society and the Lance Cruz Amateur Radio Club in Detroit. And there's a link to it on the Solid Copy that anybody can view for the CW Ops. And finally, I have an opportunity on behalf of the Pinecone Amateur Radio Club to present this certificate of friendship to all of you in your radio club in sincere appreciation for your spirit of international goodwill and connecting with us and reaching out and in the nature of your radio club's membership, and for what we believe to be your promotion of the highest principles and best practices in the ham radio hobby. And our club is happy to join with you in making this ham radio club successful. So that's my presentation.
Carl, that was absolutely superb. Really enjoyed it. As I'm sure various other people in the room did too. When I said I had a cupboard full of about 10 telescopic poles, I forgot to mention I've got about 4 of those Chinese telescopic whips as well. So, and I know a number of people here have bought them, as you say, either from eBay or we've been buying them here from AliExpress direct from China for a ridiculous amount of money. Very, very similar quality, to be honest, to the ones that MFJ were producing and selling.
Yes.
So very similar indeed, but they are just absolutely suited to antennas portable. And what you said there, I for one agree with everything, but I'm sure others do as well. We've got, I'm going to go straight to Ken without even asking for questions. But Ken, you were out earlier just before the meeting tonight saying that you were out portable by the coast there in Alicante. Just tell Carl what the antenna radiator was that you were using in your setup there, Ken.
Well, it's on a trolley, Carl. It's on a 2-wheeled trolley, and I've got a Chinese, one of those stainless steel whips, 5.6 meters long, and it fits in a sleeve on the side of the trolley. And I don't use any radios because I use a ground tuning unit through the trolley.
Mm-hmm.
There's 1 or 2 doing it now in the UK. It seems to be a big thing, but I come down to Spain because of the salt lagoon water. And of
it
course,
helps. Salt water is the best antenna friend you could have.
Well, yes, I think it was yesterday. No, it wasn't. It was the day before. I was calling CQ and Victor Kilowatt 9 Delta X-ray answered me. That's basically speaks volumes, doesn't it, really? So I was the only station that could be heard out of Europe. Yeah.
Well, and I think Ken only runs on his portable ops. You run 70 watts, I think, Ken, generally. Don't
Yeah,
you?
about 60, 70 watts. That's all on battery power, lithium iron phosphate batteries, and everything's mounted on a 2-wheeled. Well, I call it the radio trolley. It's a sack trolley. I don't know what you call them in the States. Sack, whatever, I'm not sure. But I've also got a beach trolley with 4 wheels. And you can mount one of, I've got a fixing to mount it in the summer. This is more for the summer. The same antenna on the mounting on the corner of the 4-wheeled beach trolley, and again it works equally as good. I can't fault them. I think I heard early in my radio life a saying, verticals are for boys and beams are for men. And I think the people that said that didn't know enough about vertical antennas.
I have become a convert. I wish I would have found this out earlier in my ham radio life instead of just in the past 5 years. But I have become a convert to these now. And my friends in North Carolina, where they do have these nice trees, have started using these too, just out of convenience. Because if you have 20 minutes or an hour to get on the air to do a park activation, wouldn't it be nice to spend as much of that time as possible actually making contacts instead of throwing your wires up into the tree with a beanbag? It's just, it gives you more airtime if your antenna goes up quicker. Also, some of our parks are easy to use for ham radio, and some of them really you don't want to bother the primary users of the park. If people are out there with their dogs or their kids playing baseball, or, out for a nice romantic walk around the park in the beautiful trees, you don't want to disturb them with your beeping noise of Morse code hobby. And so if I can have a very discreet, non-invasive antenna and put on my headphones and send my code with the key so that no one hears me and I'm not bothering anybody, I'm being a better neighbor, and a better ambassador for the hobby, and probably less likely to get thrown out of the park by the park ranger.
Absolutely, yeah. When I was out tonight, I took a pair of headphones with me in the box and a torchlight because it was dark when I set up. And I think it took me, from the moment I actually stood still with the trolley, it took me three minutes to deploy the 5.6 meter antenna, put everything together, clip it to the base plate, and I was up and running. 3 minutes. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And I travel for work a lot, and I don't have a lot of time because I'm between meetings. But there's might be a park on the way, and I've got 20 minutes. So I can pull off into this park and get my activation. And it is kind of funny. Brantley jokes with me a lot about what do the neighbors think, because I'm traveling for work. So I'm wearing a suit and tie. And, I pulled off into this park on the side of the road, and here I am wearing a suit and tie, doing Morse code out of, this little park. Looks a little strange probably to some people going by, but I have a lot of fun. And if I had to spend a lot of time with a complex antenna system, that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you need to be there and operating quickly. And then if you need to take it down because the weather changes or whatever, you can do it as quick as you can put it up, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
I mean, I've spoke to Nick about this a lot, and everyone on the club here knows what I'm doing, or most of the time. Yeah, I think we've got to push this portable operations as much as possible. The fresh air, the fact that you're out there, and you're not sat at home, you're moving about, it's physically a good thing. And if you can get a good station up and running, you feel that you've achieved something at the end of it. And I think, like you've described, I mean, you've taken it one step further with the vertical antennas and creating a beam. Yeah, it's fantastic, really. Can't fault you. And super.
Thank you, Ken. And Carl, Ken's activation this week when he worked VK9 and ZL as well, using 70 watts from the Salt Lagoons, there's a video on our website. So if you go to look at one of the sub menus is members, blogs and reports, click on EA5 stroke G4 VZV, you'll see him, you'll see the trolley he's talking about. It's the kind of thing that dockers would use unloading a ship in a harbour, where they're putting stuff into a barrow and they're pushing it across to put onto a lorry or take somewhere else. It's one of those trolleys. Very simple.
I will look at that.
Right. Anyone else with a comment or question to Carl about his talk tonight? And we've got people here, Carl. Mike, DL1BJW, who loves portable operation over there in Germany. Mike, just give Carl a sense of what you thought of his talk tonight and how that overlaps with your own operations there when you're operating portable.
Yeah, gladly. First of all, Carl, excellent talk. Thank you very much for it. It gave one a lot of new ideas, and I think I will go out very soon and try it out myself. I wanted to point out that there is a friend of ours in New Zealand, ZL3 XDJ, Zulu Lima 3 X-ray Delta Juliet, Brian. He's located on the South Island, and he's also experimenting with vertical antennas, especially with a two-piece setup and a three-piece setup, as you did in your talk there. And he's also experimenting with the radios. He does something with radios on the ground, but lately also with elevated radios. That is to say, they connect about 1 meter above ground, I think, and the antenna, of course, above that. So he's got very good results with that, and he's got a video channel on YouTube. You could look it up if it is of interest. Zulu Lima 3 X-ray Delta Juliet Brian. That's in the same line of thought, I think. But it's a very interesting thing. And as Nick said, my wife and myself have done a lot of going into the field with vertical antennas, and have encountered many difficulties on our way there. For example, dogs who try to meddle with the radials, for example. And of course, people who are quite inquisitive of what we are doing, and we have to explain, but that's not a problem, of course. I'm always glad if someone has got an interest in amateur radio and asks some questions. But it's a great thing to go outdoors, and we love it very much. And we have until now not tried QRO, but only 5 to 20 watts, I think, at the utmost. And this works really excellent. Thank you again for the talk.
Oh, thank you, Mike. I've written down ZL3XDJ, and I'm going to look that up because that sounds very, very similar to what I'm interested in doing. So thank you for that connection. The other thing I think I forgot to say in my talk, an objection to vertical antennas is that they're noisy because so much unwanted noise is vertically polarized. A solution to that is to go out into nature where there's less RF noise. And so when we go out to the rural parks, that becomes less of an issue than when we're in our subdivisions near our houses in the RF noisy environments where we like to live. And so that big downside of the antenna picking up more noise becomes less of one when we're using it in a more remote or rural setting. But then, of course, that does present its own problems too. Like you said, I have not yet run into dogs, but I could easily see that happening. I have made, we have made our club a little trifold brochure. What is ham radio? What are we doing? That I carry with me in my radio kit when I go portable, so that if a person comes kind of is inquisitive about what are you doing, I have a document that I can, provide them with. And what that document really focuses on, and what I focus on when I'm talking to people in ham radio, in addition to this is fun and it's a hobby and we do it because it's fun. It has service because during times of disaster, and I live in an area that's very prone to natural disasters with the amount of hurricanes that we have here. Amateur radio can provide communications in those times, and going out portable away from the grid and away from the home antenna system and away from everything that we depend upon every day is actually very good practice for us doing emergency communications, because in a hurricane, when our regular antennas have been blown down and the power grid is not functional, that little radio kit that I have in my hand that I can carry anywhere and instantly get on the air is the thing to use in those cases. And doing it for fun like this gives us good practice for when that time might arise. And that usually helps park rangers be a little more tolerant of why I'm in their park, not playing ball or walking a dog, but sitting at the table, tapping them on a Morse code key. But it's fun to meet the new people. And I've had several people now. 2 friends have gotten licensed. Well, one has gotten their license and the other is in the process of studying just because of Parks on the Air. The only thing in ham radio that's really exciting to them is they like the idea of going out portable and doing this park stuff. It's fun to feel like you've got a spy radio and you're got this little portable setup and make your contacts and then pack it all up. And I think that POTA and the Parks on the Air is one of the most invigorating things that I've seen in ham radio in my lifetime, really.
I think many people would agree with you, Carl, and we've got people in our room here tonight who really love it. Bob, N4XAT, you're nowadays a hunter rather than an activator, but just let Carl know where you're at with your POTA stats, Bob, because you've just been superb, mainly on CW.
Mainly CW, mainly QRP. As of this morning, I had 3,067 parks,
Wow.
30 countries. Now, I'm 90 years old and I can't go to parks anymore or anything. And more recently, I've developed a hand problem. So I'm having a problem with my key. So I, not only because of my hands, but just to get a couple more parks, I do a little bit of FT8 and a little bit of SSB now.
Great.
But I've been a ham since 1954. So I've been a ham for a while, and it's been mostly all CW. I think SSB came along in 39 and it didn't turn me on when I became a ham. 15, 20 years later, I stuck with my CW. So most of those POTA contacts are CW contacts.
Bob, your call
and
sounds
most of those
familiar.
POTA contacts are actually QRP contacts on the same screen that you're on. So I can't look to see if I've ever worked you, but with the QRP, it's strange that one map that you showed of your verticals before you put up the beam section, that's about where my normal contacts are from New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. I get that circle, but it's surprising. It's surprising the DX that'll come in and for a few days, for instance, about a month ago, almost every day I could hear people in GM land, and I made contacts then, and that most of my DX contacts are that way. And like I said, I have 30 countries now. Of course, the main country is the U.S. I still have not got during this cycle. I have not got either Alaska, Hawaii arcs, and a lot of them apparently they have a resident CW operator. So almost every day, most of my work was on 20. More recently, I've switched a lot to 40, and I'm waiting as the weather gets colder here. POTA awards. I now have 2 3-inch binders full of awards.
Wow.
And 2 2-inch binders. I'll give you an idea here just a second.
Yeah, no problems, Ken.
This is I don't know where I am here. This is just my QSL cards. This
wow.
one. And as a matter of fact, I got another bunch in today in the mail, which I haven't opened yet. But I have one that I just keep the standard award in, and then of course they have that new deal where you get a badge. Well, I have 2,400 over 20. I think it was 2,400 this week. Early morning contacts. So
that's great.
Well,
Bob, I really appreciate hunters because without hunters, we couldn't activate. So thank you. You're just as much a part of POTA as the activator. It literally takes both parts equally in order for the system to work. So that's great. And your call's familiar to me. I'm sure we've worked. you work enough calls regularly that some of them stick in your head I've heard that one before. And XAT definitely.
I have two stations that I've worked, park stations that I've worked over 300 times. I have two of them, that I've worked over 300. Now, I started a little before you. I started in November of 2023 with Parks on the Air.
That's
of
excellent.
Course, I have a life, but after I picked up my 705 and I went QRP, I found it's a whole new game. It's like you with your antenna going from a vertical to a horizontal. It's a whole new game, and it's so much fun, and it's a whole new learning experience. I don't care whether you're 10 or whether you're 100. It's a whole new learning experience for one when they do things like that.
And Bob, I like your radio room clock. I saw your
I'll check my
radio room clock over your shoulder there with the markings for the quiet time listening markers on it. I like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can see it, but you notice at noon there's also a mark. That's when when the ships put out their regular call. Navy by the Royal Navy Amateur Radio Society, but it's very similar to the old silent period clocks that we used to have aboard ship. I was in the Navy for 30 years.
Oh, very good. Well, I like clocks and watches as a separate hobby, and so I'm always on the lookout for old ships' radio room clocks as a special way to overlap my two interests.
There you go. And you live in New Orleans now. New Orleans.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
I was in Pensacola for quite a few years, so I get over your way every now and then.
Oh yeah, just over I-10.
Yeah, and the funny thing, you were talking about snakes and alligators. I was stationed also on the other side of you in San Antonio, and before we get into the car, we'd have to be careful to make sure there wasn't a snake underneath of the car keeping out of the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bob. Yeah, I think Bob and Carl, you're both right. Parks on the Air is doing a fantastic thing for the hobby. It really is, and I think the message you were getting across, Carl, was about trying to make it as easy as possible when you set up and put down. And I agree with you about that. And one of the problems that I use those telescopic verticals. By the way, I use only four counterpoise wires lying on the ground. They're all 3 meters long, so there is no resonance taking place there. I use that for 40 meters, 20, 15, and 10. I adjust the coil. I have one of the adjustable coils, so I can adjust the coil as well as adjusting the whip. With 10 watts, like Bob and my 705, on single side, I'm mainly a CW operator. Like Bob, I occasionally use the microphone. In the summer this year, up on the hills, the picture behind me is where I live, really, up in the hills here. And they're not massive hills.
They're massive by Louisiana standards.
A few 100 feet high. But the ground is mainly peat. It's definitely not very conductive. It's very windy. So the problem I have with one single telescopic wire, one telescopic whip, is I have to guy it because the whip can snap it very quickly. But using that setup, so I've got a very simple guying, just three pieces of string effectively coming down to stop it blowing over. Calling CQ on POTA, and I had to double take several times, being called back by KL7 in Alaska, who heard me and gave me a call. So, that you're right about vertical antennas. You've got a low angle of takeoff for a vertical antenna. That's what makes them so good. And you've got the added benefit, as Ken knows from operating the salt lagoons, and you do where you are with the salt water surrounding you, the high conductivity of the water just gives you that rocket boost effectively for your signal off on that low angle. There's another interesting design. I'm just going to put it up on the screen. People would have seen it, but we've got and I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to make my own for next summer, really. One of our amateur radio dealers, we haven't got many left in the UK now, but one of them, Martin Lynch and Son, one of the three big amateur radio dealers in the UK, he launched a couple of months ago a vertical Moxon beam antenna for 20 meters.
Oh, that would be fascinating to see.
Made from wire. Now I'm gonna share my screen and put it up so you can see what they've done here. So can you see that okay?
Yes.
So first of all, I mean, what he's selling is a wire antenna. It's 2 elements. So if I just move my mouse over it, here's the driven element, and this is the reflector part of the Moxon beam. This is just a link, so the wire loops round in a kind of shape like that on both sides, and it's fed from this point here. It gives a 50 ohm feed from there. There's no balun required, and it's supported on 2 poles. I mean, they make the point. If I scroll down, I mean, first of all, I know wire isn't very expensive and the bits aren't that expensive, but I mean, they're selling it in the UK for £60. You know, that's extremely cheap. And they've on their website, you'll see they've posted a little video link of using this for the first time. They've got a couple of videos on their website of the vertical Moxon antenna. So if you just Google Ham Radio Co UK and look for this, you'll see this which they measured around 5 dBi gain from this 20 meter vertical Moxon. Again, handling up to a kilowatt if you wanted to do it. Lightweight and portable, easy to set up. A bit more difficult than yours, I think, but you know, reasonably okay to set up. Oh, that was interesting.
That's very interesting.
So I saw that, and then I saw almost the same time the CW Ops article from you about that 3-element beam. So I did the same as you. I went back to Jerry Sevick's article. I'm an ARRL member. The wonders of the searching facilities for QST are great on the site now. So I picked up Jerry Sevick's article. Jerry Sevick, I've got his books as well, because he is the man that wrote about baluns and transformers, and he really was the guru, and was a very good friend of G3TXJ, who was the guy that invented the hex beam antenna, and they corresponded and worked a lot as well. So I knew of Jerry Sevick's work, but I didn't know of that vertical beam until I went back and saw the link to that QST article and downloaded it myself. So, you know, you've done us all a great favor here, because, you know, the holy grail that, I mean, I don't go out in my car. I go out with a rucksack and the stuff in my rucksack bag. So it's got to be, for me, it's got to be what I can fit in my rucksack. And then I'm happy slogging up a hill for a while to set up. But the holy grail for me is not very much, so very small in weight, and not too many moving parts. So when you arrive, I don't want to spend, like you, 30 minutes or 40 minutes putting it all up. I like it all to be up in 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd like it to come down as quickly as well. And that, for me, is the holy grail of portable operating, and an antenna that really works. I mean, I don't know if you've had experience yet of trying your antenna with the 40-meter coil.
No, I want to do that.
40 meters generally, certainly during the day, is not as good as higher up.
And I usually do all of my POTAs in the afternoon, which is why I haven't done for it. But it's my goal to try that because it's very hard to get a 40-meter directional antenna in anybody's house. So if this could work on that, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, so a 40 meter version of a three element beam would be interesting. And if you're out somewhere in a park or a big field somewhere, where I go to is kind of open land, so you can, I've got hundreds of feet to play with. You could set something like that up reasonably quickly, even for 40 meters. And that could perform quite well, I think, particularly again for DX working. But yeah, we're only jealous. I mean, we're jealous in our club, Carl, of Ken there, who's a member of our club here, because he goes out to Spain a lot and operates from the salt lagoons. So we're all on DX watch when he's out in the salt lagoons to see who he's working. And if we can hear him here, we call him in, and he's. I'm a bit like you, Carl. I was camping in France. Well, I go camping in France every year in the summer. So I use one of those vertical whip antennas as an antenna next to where I'm sat on the campsite. They're quite busy campsites in France in the summer. So I don't want anything intrusive. I don't want anything that anyone's going to talk about or interfere with their life or what they're doing. And that whip antenna with the simple wires on the ground works extremely well. And I've called Ken from not last year, but the year before, from where I was camping when he was out in the salt lagoons talking to a number of stations in VK, and Ken heard me and called me in. So I then had the privilege of working 3 or 4 of those VK stations whilst I was operating 10 watts using one of those telescopic whips and 4 pieces of 3-meter lengths of wire lying on the ground. That was it. I mean, that really is, that for me, this sums up for me the pleasures, I think, that our forebears got in the early days of amateur radio in the 1920s and the 1930s, when they were building their one valve transmitter and they had their piece of wire up, and the pleasure they got out of it. That for me has given me, I think, the same pleasure.
Oh, I feel similarly. My grandfather was one of those early radio amateurs, and I have built, it's on my QRZ page, a replica of his transmitter, which was one valve around the O1A valve. And you just plugged it into the mains. It used AC, used 110 volts as the AC as the B plus because he couldn't afford a transformer. And back then they didn't care about such things. But today we have almost an equally thrilling technological revolution as they had with the miniaturization of radio and the batteries. I mean, we have, in my little Elecraft handheld radio, I can carry everything in my hand to make contacts around the world, antenna to battery and everything. And, we haven't had, I don't think, that kind of technological difference. I mean, it's such a different experience to be able to take this so easy to use, so portable. It is like the beginning days of radio, kind of that mystery and magic all over again.
Yeah, you look on our YouTube channel, Carl. A couple of weeks ago, we had a talk at the club from a Scottish amateur, GM0EUL, who's a QRP operator, who decided he wanted to build a one valve transmitter, and he did. And the design he used was by a guy called Hans Summers, who is the guy behind the company called QRP Labs, who produced these amazing little QMX transceivers for operating CW on HF. They are just amazing pieces of kit. And Hans Summers, when he first got into radio, that was the first one he built. And Hans Summers was amazed because he's seen Peter's talk he gave to our club, and Peter described it as the QMX, the QRP Labs valve transmitter. And Hans Summers has seen this, and he's just he's just blown away by this. He was saying that, you know, someone's copied his design from when he was about 15 years old, and built a new version of it and had fun with it. So yeah, it's anyway. Look, I'm asking and making points to Carl, but there must be other people in the room who'd like to join in this discussion. So please feel free to join in. Anyone wants to make any comments? Phil, G4UDU, you go out operating portable quite a bit, particularly from your camper van. What do you think of Carl's contribution tonight? Food for thought, eh?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've played about, actually going back a while, I played about with 2-element verticals back 20, 30 odd plus years ago, using a lot of the phasing designs that was in ON4UN's book. And I've tried them out. Yeah, so I've been there and done it and had all sorts of odd things I'd take out. But I've got a whole array of poles and bits and pieces in the vehicle. So, you know, I just play whenever I get there, and I just take something else out. So you'll see. But working by the sea, when I go down to EA8, yeah, I've got a particular operating point there. We stay in a hotel. I just walk over onto the seashore, then I walk out, and there's a great big breakwater goes right out into the ocean, into the Atlantic Ocean, and you know it's from the seashore out to it, probably 100, 150 yards out from the seashore. So basically, I've got salt water all around me, and it's fantastic.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah,
that's hard to beat.
You can't, you know. And I've taken various QRP radios out there, and just every time it just works. You know, it just works. And the difference between trying it in the hotel on land, you know, to taking it out on the water is enormous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes. And I still continue, you know, I didn't work QRP for a very long time. When I was in college, I had a QRP rig, and then I said, well, then I finally got a job so I could afford a radio with finals in it, and never worked QRP again for many years. And then with this portable stuff, I've just, and Brantley's really the one who got me into QRP. I've fallen in love with little radios that I can pick up and carry and take anywhere. And with the new fact that there's batteries built into most of these radios that I now have, and some of them even have antenna tuners built into them and memory keyers built into them, and they're so stable. They're not drifting up and down the band like, you know, they're just such high quality that QRP to me is not a handicap. No. I don't see it as a handicap.
No, but I've got a QMX Plus here as well, which I built just because I thought I would. And as far as Dayton Handventions, I'm sad to admit I've got 30 hits on that now.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's great.
Oh, must be very sad to have 30. Yeah.
More than me.
Well,
are you going this year? Do you plan to go in 2026?
Yeah, I didn't go this year. I've been going most year, but next year, I've already got a hotel booking. So
excellent. Well, I'll be there as well. So will Brantley. And do you ever go to the CW Ops dinner?
No, I haven't done. No, I mean, the trouble is trying to work out what to go to, because there's so many different things on.
So, correct.
Which hotel are you staying at?
I haven't made the reservation. My club in Detroit has a room block at a Holiday Inn Express, and so I book through them as soon as they tell me that the block is open.
Yeah, I'll be at the Hope this year. So I've been at the Holiday Inn QRP one before for several years, but in Fairbourne. But this particular time coming up, I'm actually at the Hope over on the airbase. So I'm staying over there. I've been there before. I've been all over, all different hotels, and at the old venue.
I was going to say, you've been going long enough. You've been a lot when it was actually at Harrah Arena.
I've been to Harrah Arena when it was in April.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. When the flea market opened at 6 o'clock in the dark.
With the snowy, icy rain.
That's the one. Been there, done that.
Oh, well, I hope our paths cross this year in Dayton. It would be great to have an eyeball QSO with you.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll have to look you out when I'm there, but I'll be there for the full time. I'm out there at the show full 2.5 days, so I'm around. But the problem is you get there and then everyone's saying, oh, we're going for dinner so and so.
Oh, yes. It's non-stop radio events. Yeah.
There's only one place we go to on Thursday night, and it was tradition set up. Do you remember Bill N4AR?
No.
In Kentucky.
No, that name doesn't.
Big station, big CW operator in Kentucky, just south of Lexington, and he come across a place called Bullwinkle's Bistro Bar, which is down in Miamisburg, down near where Drake was.
Yes.
And we always go there on Thursday nights. No matter what else happens, we always go there on Thursday nights. So we'll be down there Thursday, but the rest of the time we could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Phil. Yeah, I think, Carl, it looks to me like the radio club you've set up has got many of the same value, almost exactly the same values that we've got in our club. Playing with radio, using them wherever we can, taking them out portable, using them from home as well. Trying out different antennas. The other thing you can do, a couple of people in the club have played with using 2 of those telescopic whips to not so much to make an inverted V antenna, but to make a delta loop. So having a vertical delta loop antenna. And one of our members is not on the call here tonight, but I know he'll watch this on YouTube. Lou G8KJJ has built delta loop antennas for 20 meters, 15 and 10. So different lengths on each occasion, and he's modeled them on EasyNet as well. So all of them with a 50 ohm feeder, no need for a transformer on them. So just getting the angle and the lengths right so that it's fed with 50 ohms. And he's been working amazing DX with this, absolutely amazing DX on all those bands. So that's certainly something else to look at.
That's another interesting thing to play with. I had a 40-meter delta loop when I lived in North Carolina, wire in my trees. The only bad thing with it is the trees didn't grow in the right spot, so I couldn't point it where I really wanted to point it, but those are great antennas as well. And doing it with those telescopic whips would be very convenient for 10. And I mean, I'm sure 20 would push it probably I'm sure he's got a way to stabilize it so it's not just the whip in the section. But yeah, that would be another great use of these whips. These whips are great and they're not that expensive. So you can buy 4 or 5 of them and play with them without breaking the bank. And they really do work. And it's just so amazing to me that we have these things.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, Lou's had great fun with this and great success with it. I mean, a number of us I've used wired delta loops before, but again, where if you look at the countryside where I live here and you go out walking there are no trees anywhere. So whatever, if you want to have an aerial high, you've got to take a pole. If you take a pole, you've got to guide that pole or have something to fix it in the ground with. So, and the ground is particularly in the summer months, is very, very hard indeed. Lots and lots of rocks and things are inside the ground. So it's quite tricky. The only way of doing it is to guy. But once you start guying poles, you're adding time and effort, and trying to do that by yourself you can do it, but it's a bit fiddly.
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at your landscape there, and yeah, I do notice the lack of tall trees, and as you've mentioned, the wind, and that's a hard combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Before we say good night to Carl, anyone else got any questions or comments they want to put to him? Yes, Ken.
Yeah. Good evening, Carl. A wonderful talk. I must have got the wrong end of it, but when you were showing the photos of the vertical and the alligators, did you not say that was a 45-foot vertical?
No, it's 18 foot, and I extend it to about 16 foot.
So it's the total length's about 18 foot.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was about 40 foot, and I wondered how you got it out.
No, that would be too much. That would be too much.
They start to blow over.
Yes, no, it's 20 meters. It's long enough to be resonant on the 20-meter band when it's fully extended, and then I can put the coil in the bottom of it to make it electrically longer so that I can use it on 40 meters. Yeah, when it's about 18 foot long from stem to stern as an antenna.
Oh, well, there you go. It's wonderful. I've got 1,000 foot of wire in the garden in my place, which certainly does help. And I've got a clip on it so I can take it off, put it back on, and it does make a big difference. And to the tuning, of course. But there we go. And finally, thanks all of you, but happy Thanksgiving to all of you folks over there. Bob?
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, that's tomorrow for us.
Hope you and Kathy have a good time.
Thank you.
I miss the pecan pie and the pumpkin pie and all that. My son's over there with his wife. Unfortunately, she is a strict vegetarian, so they're having nut roast and mixed vegetables, and instead of beef Wellington, they're having some sort of weird nut roast. But he, of course, has just come back from here visiting me, and I've been feeding him steak for the best part of a week. But there you go. Enjoy yourselves tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Just out of interest, what part of Michigan are you from?
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit, right, okay. Because I've been to Michigan many times. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I it's one of those parts of our country where the economy was all based around car manufacturing for 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
And when that kind of left us, the economic opportunities there kind of left. So I left when I turned 18 and finished high school, and have never been back other than to visit my parents, because there's just never been jobs, jobs there. And so most of my friends who grew up that I went to school with also live all over the country. You frequently run into people from Michigan when you're in the United States because of that. We grew up there and had to move over here for work, sort of thing. So it's a good place where lots of people are from.
Yeah, no, I know someone that had a holiday cottage up at Petoskey in Michigan.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then another after that, you've had one up in Paradise, Michigan, up on the UP.
I know where both of those places are. Yeah. Those are towns I remember driving around with my family when I was a kid, and we were going around on vacation and such.
Did you ever go up there in the winter?
Yes. My uncle lived in Grayling, Michigan, which is pretty far north. And we would go to his house for Christmas. And so it was very cold. What I do remember is we'd go rabbit hunting, and it was after Christmas, and out in the snow with snowshoes on, and you could track the rabbits pretty easy because you see them in the snow. You see the footprints. Right.
Yeah.
No, and so I did that. That's something I did as a kid that I wouldn't want to do as an adult. Those are hobbies that are better for younger people, perhaps, and I'd rather be on the inside by the fireplace playing ham radio today. But when I was young, I enjoyed going out in it.
Carl, can you send us a copy of your PowerPoint presentation?
Oh, yes. I'll gladly do that.
When you get a chance, so that people can, if anyone wants a copy of that and wants to, follow the links and so on, they're available on the PowerPoint. So thank you.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I can. If anyone wants a copy of Jerry Sevick's QST article, I can let you have that. So, but it will be useful to have the PowerPoint. Carl, can I just give you a really big thanks? Thank you so much for delivering a good talk. Can we first of all show our appreciation to Carl in the usual way? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate the invitation, Nick, and making this so easy for me with your good communications and sending the links and everything. It's just been a joy. Thank you.
it's been a pleasure to have you, Carl, and do come along and let's keep our two clubs in contact, because I'd love to know how you get on experimenting a bit further and operating in contest with that vertical beam, and if that 2-element Moxon inspires you to go and make something similar, then I'd be interested to hear how you get on with that. And by all means, on our website you'll find a place, just if you want to just receive our club newsletters, Carl, or I can put you on the mailing list in case there's a meeting in there you find interesting. It might not be at the right time of the day because of work, enable you to get here, but it will be up on our YouTube channel. By all means, go and have a look, and let's keep our two clubs in contact with each other. I think we've got shared values in our studio.
We will. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carl. And thank you to our viewers on YouTube. I'm going to say good night to them, and going to hit the stop record button as well. So thank you very much to those of you that have been watching live on YouTube, and thank you as well to those who will be looking at this on the video stream that goes up tomorrow morning. So thank you very much. And good night from Pennine Ham. We've got our next meeting the same time next week, where we've got Steve, AA4BW, who is actually a member of Pennine Ham as well. He joined us when he met us at the Blackpool Rally earlier in the year. A couple of us, Ken and I, were up there. Phil was there. We met Steve, who's also a GQRP club member. He's going to give us the talk next week about telescopic poles, and a bit more about POTA, and a bit more about CW, and a bit more about QRP. So that's going to take us into Christmas. So thanks very much, everybody. Good night from Pennine Ham. I'll be ending the recording now. Thank you.
Carl, you may be interested in that one next week too.
Yeah.
I've worked Steve from, I forget how many parks, but over 10.